Today, excuse me, today I'm going to answer the question that nobody has ever asked any time. Why did he upload this rubbish? Today, I am going to answer the question that absolutely nobody has ever asked. Which is the best for beginner, banjo or guitar? This would make a good thumbnail. But maybe I should do the stupid surprised face for more views. Look guys, if I do that, just kill me, okay? Please. So what we have here is two very cheap, affordable, better word than cheap, instruments for beginners. This is a Harley Benton banjo coming in at about $150. Check your local prices. This is a Recording King Dirty 30s parlor guitar costing about $120. So you can't really go wrong with the price, and I've done separate reviews on both of these instruments if that's something you want to watch. But the question that nobody ever asks is, what's better for a beginner? The banjo or the guitar? Well, I'm going to tell you in today's video because I'm a beginner and I play both. Well, I think most of you know how a guitar works, so let's start with the banjo, and I'll tell you how it compares, some of the aspects that a beginner would need to think about, the ease of learning and the coolness of the instrument and that kind of thing. The important stuff. The coolness and the important stuff. Well, where do we start? Let's talk about the ergonomics perhaps. This is a much smaller body than what you get on a guitar, so it probably is more ideal for small children or people with small arms. So that, I think, is a bonus for the banjo. The other thing is that we tune the banjo to an open chord like this. Sorry, I detuned it for a previous video, but that's a C chord. Normally you tune it to a G. That's an out of tune. Close enough. Now, one of the disadvantages with the banjo is that it's very hard to tune because the bridge is just resting on this tom-tom drum head. What's that all about? So that means when you tension one string, it pushes down on this and makes all the other ones drift in their tuning. So you're having to sort of go through all the strings about 3 times before you get it anywhere close to being in tune. And they never really are in tune anyway, because you can just... As soon as you move the instrument, it sort of drifts in and out of tune. So that's a bit of a disadvantage compared to the guitar. But once you have it more or less in tune, it sounds pretty nice without you having to do anything at all. Although we have a 5th string to worry about, it's not really much of a bother because you never actually fret it with your left hand, you just let it ring open. So you've only got 4 strings to worry about, and they're already tuned as a very nice sounding chord. We have a G major triad and a 5th below. Contrast that now with the guitar, which sounds rubbish when you don't do anything with your left hand. So beginners are pretty soon going to have to struggle with holding down the chords and managing with the 6 different strings. And the relationships between the different strings are much more confusing than they are on the banjo. Another thing I want to mention is the string tension, which results in how hard it is to push down on the strings. We've all been there as a beginner playing the guitar. It's so hard to get the strength in your fingers to press down on the strings. The little finger doesn't want to get involved, does it? It's just awful. Not so much on the banjo, fortunately. Well, firstly, there's only 4 strings that we have to worry about down here where we play the chords. Just 4 strings. They sound really nice, as they are. And Because I think the strings are longer and lower tension, they're a lighter gauge string, it's really easy to push down the strings. Fretting them is a piece of cake, it really is, and stuff like hammer-ons, pull-offs, string bends, slides, whoa, wrong note. So much easier on the banjo than it is on guitar. You find yourself having to be really careful actually not to accidentally do string bends as you're holding down the chords. That was me playing a guitar chord shape on the banjo, which obviously doesn't work. Talking of the guitar shapes, or the chord shapes, really super simple on the banjo. There's a G, here's a D. Just hold down 2 notes of the 4. And I've kind of forgotten what the other one is. Let's see. No? There we go, there's your C. So just by using 2 fingers you can play the G, the C and the D. There's an E minor here with 1 finger. And I think just due to the way the 5th string, which is always on a G, interacts with the other chords, you get really sophisticated sounding chords with no effort at all. So I would venture as far as saying that to get a sort of nice sounding accompaniment or backing pattern, is hugely easier on the banjo. So that's a big advantage for this particular instrument. Now, on the guitar, you learn your basic chord shapes. Everyone learns the E minor, the A's and stuff. What I'm trying to say is that there's a standard tuning for the guitar, and although other tunings are available, you don't really need to use them, and many guitar players have a fantastic career just using the standard guitar tuning. But on banjo, it's a different kettle of fish. You see, banjo players are constantly adjusting the tunings. It's all very well having a G chord, but what happens if you're playing with a different musician that wants to use a key of A or D or something? Well, what you'll end up doing is retuning your guitar, the banjo. I'll give you some examples. That's a completely different flavour. We can drop this one down to C. Now, that's all well and good. The trouble is that you're going to have to relearn all of the chord shapes that you just learned in the key of G. And that can be quite challenging for me as I was going to say accomplished musician. I play a little bit of piano. But you've got to relearn all of the chord shapes. You've got to relearn all the melodies that you're playing and all the scales and stuff. So that can be a quite challenging thing and quite mind-boggling for a beginner. So that's something that you're going to have to figure out. The guitar we can play with our fingers, like a finger picking style. Something I'm not very good at. I did say that I'm just a beginner, okay? Or you can use a plectrum, a pick. And both of those are perfectly fine and acceptable, and I love them both. On the banjo, however, it's slightly different. You play with a downward motion using the back of your fingernail, or just the front of your fingernail, I suppose. Always in a downward motion. And then you're picking up with your thumb as well. And that feels very unintuitive in the beginning, but don't worry, you soon get used to it. And it does give you a very full sound, because you can play a melody, for example, or down here. You've got kind of a rhythm section going on there. You've got the boom, chick, boom, chick. And that that little arpeggio plink. So you get a very full sound, a nice accompaniment for yourself if you're singing or performing or something. Let's talk about the sound then. Very subjective thing, of course. I put together a little demonstration of some kind of beginner pieces so you can hear for yourselves which sounds the best. You've learned your instrument, now you want to play with some other musicians, maybe join a band. So I did a quick check on my local music press and internet. I could find about 20 advertisements of guitarists looking to join bands or bands seeking guitarists. For the banjo, not so much. For the guitar then, a super versatile instrument. There's so many different styles you can play. We talked about the finger picking, there's rock, jazz, blues, folk music, and so on and so on. And of course, you can also pick up the electric guitar for a completely different sound if you want to play rock or thrash or... Totally versatile, any musical style, more or less. On the banjo then, well, there's nothing stopping you from doing that, but mainly these are used for more traditional music, like the old-timey American folk music or bluegrass music, perhaps, where the banjo is very prominently featured. But apart from that, there isn't really much else, is there? So it's not particularly versatile. If you don't like those styles of music, don't get a banjo. Probably nobody's watching this rubbish.
Hello, short-haired editor Woody here. A couple of points that I forgot to mention. The banjo is significantly louder than the guitar, with that nasally twang that cuts through a lot better if you're playing in an acoustic band situation. So that might be an advantage or a disadvantage if you're playing at home and don't want to annoy the family. You might be wondering which is the most fun, which has the highest fun factor. Well, for me anyway, I think it's the banjo because it's easiest to get going on and slightly less frustrating. I've been playing guitar since I was about 8 years old, on and off, and now I'm an old fart and I still haven't mastered how to play the F bar chord. It's totally frustrating. Maybe some of you can relate to that, let me know in the comments. Okay, let's go back to the other idiot and see if he can wrap up all of this nonsense.
Bugger off! I've left out lots of... Let's wrap this up then. I think in conclusion, in my own experience as a beginner on both instruments, the banjo is far superior as a beginner instrument. You will much more quickly get sounding good, and it'll be a much more rewarding and satisfactory learning experience, I think. Much easier to get accomplished on the banjo than it is on the guitar. But at the end of the day, who cares? Because everyone hates the banjo. Just buy a guitar, okay? Actually, I just changed my mind. Buy both of them. The skills that you will learn on one instrument translates very easily to the next one you learn, so you don't need to start all over from scratch. And the skills you certainly learn on the guitar and the technique will certainly carry over to the banjo, so you can become pretty good at both of them and have the best of both worlds. Thank you so much for watching this. If anybody is still watching this, thank you for sticking to the very end. I'll see you next time. Cheerio.